Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Monica Rodriguez. We have a lot of stories to get through today, including the weaponization of the FBI, the multi-tiered justice system, the Biden documents being hidden from public transparency, and of course, how the corporate media is framing and shaping the public perception for our brothers and sisters still in the mainstream. Joining us now to help us break this all down, retired FBI agent and owner of Kronos Investigations, Colin Schmidt. Colin, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Of course. So before we get into this rundown, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience? When did you join the FBI? A little bit about your career?
Well, I'm a legacy agent. My father was an FBI agent starting in 1952 to 1980, and then I came on board in 1997. So 25 years with the organization. It was a fantastic ride. I would recommend it for anybody. And I really do appreciate everything that the FBI did for me, and I had the opportunities to do some good things. In that 25 years, I worked everything from bank robbery to drug trafficking to terrorism, and I kind of finished my career the last 10 years doing financial crimes and public corruption. So a lot of the things that are in the news now I'm kind of familiar with in terms of how those investigations would play out. And then in terms of some of the notable things I was able to do during the San Bernardino Waterman or terrorism attack, I was a supervisor, and I was brought in to help out with the command post, ultimately help set up the command post and the lead coverage system for 22 days, working those 18-hour days, and kind of seeing how the sausage was made in terms of how headquarters was getting involved with things that were going on in the field. And then I stepped out of management, and one of the last cases I worked was an federal animal cruelty case, which happened to be one of the first ones ever successfully prosecuted federally. And that was something that was kind of a feather in the cap of a long career.
Thank you for standing up for the dogs, the animals. I'm a big animal lover, so thank you. We need harsher punishments for people that are cruel to animals. That's another discussion. Was there a point that you started to think there was something weird going on when you said that you saw how the sausage was made?
Well, you have to go all the way back to the time of Robert Mueller when he came in after 9/11, and his number one goal was to centralize the entire FBI. And then that was when everything started going to FBI headquarters, and they were kind of starting to control a lot of things that were going on in the field. And I was working some terrorism cases at the time. And then as we move forward, I started to see the kind of the real thumb of the FBI headquarters on the entire field, especially in the terrorism side. And then as things kind of progressed, and I was in that command post and kind of saw a lot of the things that headquarters were doing. Specifically, we would brief them, and then 5 minutes later, we'd look on the TV over our shoulder, and there'd be a cryon talking about something we just briefed. So I was like starting to think, wait a second, I think FBI headquarters might be getting a little too close to the fourth estate, so to speak. And then, frankly, that was 2015, and then in 2016 in July when Comey made that announcement that, in his opinion, there was no prosecutable crime for Hillary Clinton. That was just kind of the time when I saw, well, the wheels have officially fallen off, because FBI agents, we don't make that call. We gather facts. That's it. We present the facts to decision makers, and then we move on to the next case. The people that make those decisions are prosecutors. So nobody in the FBI should have any real decision-making authority over what gets prosecuted and what's not. We can give a recommendation, but it's not our job to decide who gets prosecuted. It's the FBI's job just to gather the facts.
That's really interesting, and thank you for sharing your perspective on all those, and you were there when all of that went down. So when you see the claims that the Biden FBI is being weaponized against Trump, are you shocked? And then inside the FBI, I think you touched on this a bit, but are agents highly politicized themselves, or are they just following orders at this point?
Well, you got to kind of look at the FBI. It's a franchise. There's 56 field offices, and there's approximately 65 um, entities in embassies all over the world. So the further you get away from the mothership, so to speak, the less you're going to be influenced by FBI headquarters. I was in the LA field office for the last 18 years of my career. Many times headquarters would ask or tell us to do something, and the old dog agents a lot of times would just ignore them and just move on. As long as we didn't violate the law or any policy or procedure, we just moved on with our cases. Good agents always are like water. We always find the ocean. So, but as you get closer to the mothership, you're going to be influenced because the FBI headquarters, Washington field office, and Quantico people bounce around all those three areas. So there's a lot of incentive not to rock the boat, because you rock the boat, it's going to hurt your career, or you're just going to be getting a lot of flack from a supervisor or a manager on a daily basis because you didn't, do what needed to be done in their view. So that kind of was a outcome of all the centralization that Robert Mueller had put inside the FBI, whereas the people who towed the line and went with the program, they moved up, and the ones who kind of pushed back, they found their careers in jeopardy.
So my perspective is, we're kind of seeing time and time again the establishment, if you will. I'm assuming you may think there's an establishment working at this point, that they're trying to throw charges at Trump like left and right. And I think one could probably assume it's because they don't want him running in this next election. And then we're seeing how Biden and company are being handled at the same time. And they have being accused of, I think, somewhat similar crimes, right? From your perspective, is there something weird going on there?
Well, I remember, I'm old enough to remember the Clinton administration. There was like 6 or 7 special counsels that were appointed during that time. And that was part of the reason why they changed the law, because it was over and over. These people were a special counsel here, special counsel there, and it ended up getting a little bit excessive. But in this case, it's obvious at a independent special counsel that would actually be independent of the Department of Justice, which is the way it was back in the Clinton administration, would be the appropriate person to investigate alleged crimes of Trump and alleged crimes of Joe Biden. So it does appear, and perception is reality with the American people. That's what politics is, that there is one set of rules for one side and a different set of rules for the other, especially in light of all this craziness going on with Hunter Biden. It really comes down to, if people stop feeling that the system is fair, then they're not going to participate in the system.
Yeah, and recent documents revealed that the DOJ has spent over $9 million investigating Trump since special counsel Jack Smith was appointed. Thankfully, you're the finance guy. You're the guy to ask. Would you consider this to be normal, or is this a red flag?
Well, I just do some math here. Generally, an agent or a senior a senior AUSA, Assistant United States Attorney, is going to make anywhere about 175 grand a year. They're very well paid, and that includes benefits. So the little math that I did on the back of a napkin was, you're going to pay somebody approximately $15,000 a month. Let's say there was 4 months in this investigation thus far, that's what appears the what they put out said. So that's $60,000 per employee. But then you had a line item there that said they spent like 2.7 or 2.8 million dollars on salaries. Well, divide that by 60,000, you're coming out to about 45 investigators, whether it be attorneys or agents, and then compare that to the same time frame and the same amount of money and the same math. You're looking at 6 investigators for the so-called Biden investigation. So 45 versus 6. Now, obviously, that's back of the napkin math here, but really, you just compare apples to apples, and this is ridiculous. If you're going to do it fairly and put the same resources into both investigations.
So how was he able to allocate this money for that? Is it easier to get? I don't know how things work there. Do you have to get finances signed off on? How was he able to do that?
As I understand it, as special counsel, you just ask,
Okay.
and you go to the special counsel office or whatever and say, "This is what I'm going to need. This is my budget," and they went basically sign an open, it's an open checkbook. Okay, this is what you want. This is what you give me, and we don't really know what's going on. And maybe the other special counsel asked for that much money and they declined it, or he didn't ask for it. I mean, anything is possible. But the bottom line is, though, this was the expenditures that was put out. That means it's the money that they spent. And 2.6 million versus 600,000. I mean, there's obviously everybody in America can do the math, and that really just is ridiculous that they have that much of a difference in resources put forth to both investigations.
Yes, I believe so as well. So going into Biden, apparently there are documents that may be at the University of Delaware that a judge has ruled it will not be public information. So if there's a lead, right? Why are they not pursuing this further? Would it be too crazy to speculate that this judge could be in on protecting Joe Biden?
Well, at this point, anything's possible, especially all, all the crazy stuff that's
I
coming
like how
out
you
lately.
think.
But the agents, though, have to write a affidavit for a search warrant to go get those documents because the judge has said they're not public documents. So if the process is running correctly, the agents will sit down, write the warrant. The warrant will be reviewed by an AUSA or a federal prosecutor that's assigned, and then it'll end up going to the special counsel. Special counsel will sign off on it, and then it'll go in front of a judge, whether it be a magistrate judge or a district court judge. Probably in this case, a magistrate, and then the magistrate judge will judge the warrant based upon the what's on the paper, whether they're going to grant the authority to the special counsel's office to go get those documents. But they have to have probable cause to do that. So, do they know that they're going to have documents in there that are going to be assist their investigation? And I think it'd be pretty straightforward to find people who have seen these documents who can actually be used as witnesses that can have their statements put in this warrant to create the probable cause to go ahead and ask for the warrant. But the problem here is they asked for that warrant. Technically, the special counsel has the final say, but we all know it's going to end up going to the attorney general, and he's going to be the final say on whether they get access to those documents or not.
Wow, thank you so much for shedding some light on this because I don't, the average American person doesn't know, how this all works. I'm learning so much new stuff, and I really do appreciate your insight into all this. But let's turn to Hunter Biden. What are your thoughts on the handling of him? And is it just me, or did it seem like there were so many whistleblowers trying to come forward and make statements and give their accounts, but that they kind of have been written off for the most part?
Well, there's a couple of ways I look at this. First of all, I look at it as a dad. I have children. It's a very sad story that because of Hunter Biden and all of his battles with addiction. But along that goes, there is obviously some smoke in terms of whether he committed federal crimes. So all these whistleblowers are starting to come out, and I'm sure the Republicans probably have 10 more in line behind them. And if there is a cover up, they're just going to be creating pressure inside that bubble. And when it does explode, it will explode all over. So I think what's happening here is there's a calculated risk by one side that the American people will forget and Congress will move on, or they'll run out of time for the next election, and then everybody will be like, whatever, that's just the way things go. But I think it's a little different this time because people are really seem to be upset by this way that Hunter is being treated versus way other people are being treated, and even people that have been part of the federal criminal justice process or criminal system in terms of tax evasion, and they have kind of gone down in flames for some of the same things that he's been alleged to have done. So the system only works in the long term if the people perceive it to be somewhat fair. But if it gets to the point where it becomes ridiculous, then the system's going to start breaking down, and it's going to make it really hard on everybody.
people have lost faith in the system, unfortunately. And, it's there, and I think it does maintain order, and that's needed in society. But there are certain people that may be taking advantage of the system and disillusioning Americans, disenchanting everybody to the point where we could have some real problems in a few years. Are you able to shed some light on this Dr. Gal Luft? He had some major allegations against the Biden crime family going back to 2019. He was recently arrested in Cyprus, I think for arms dealer charges. He had a really frantic, weird tweet that went out. Was he telling the truth there? He says there's no evidence of him being an arms dealer, that the U.S. is coming at him. What do you make of this?
Well, I did watch his kind of long form narrative on Twitter, I believe yesterday, and he's as somebody that used to assess the credibility of witnesses, he seems very credible. I don't know the whole story with this guy. I don't know what's going on, but he claimed that he had a meeting with 2 FBI agents and 2 or 4 federal prosecutors in some European country. I can't recall which one. And then he said after that he was arrested and he's being prosecuted for a FARA violation along with all this other stuff, which is basically not being an unregistered or not registering with the State Department in terms of him doing business with foreign entities. And that seems to be a very common charge with this U.S. attorneys or this Department of Justice for people on both sides of the aisle. So in terms of this guy, if everything is kind of running in a logical manner, there would probably be some sort of immunity deal offered to this guy, and they would stick him in the grand jury and lock down his statement and say, okay, and then the next step would be the agents or the investigators would take his statement and then start corroborating it or start disproving it, because his allegations are so explosive. There's a need to go into this thing and look into this and say, hey, is this what this guy is saying is true? Because if it isn't true, there's a real problem with corruption with some entities that were employed or a part of the United States government.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that story develops. It doesn't seem like the mainstream media wants to touch that one very much, of course. So recently over in Idaho, let's talk about how things can be fixed. Over in Idaho, the GOP passed a resolution calling for the abolition of the FBI if it cannot be reformed. What's your opinion on this? What's your take? Would this be the right move at this point? Should this be a national movement? What's your response?
Well, as somebody who's been a part of the FBI my entire life, of course not. You can't get rid of the FBI. Everything that you're hearing about the FBI, that's about 2% of what the organization does. I was part of the other 98%, whether it be bank robbery or giving victims of elder abuse some sort of justice, or frankly, the only law enforcement on Native American reservations is the FBI. So this is very troubling, because my concern is a conflation. Is basically this starts to spread, and then all of a sudden you have attorney generals or district attorneys or even sheriffs that decide, well, the FBI, you don't have the authority to operate in my territory. And most of the FBI is not actually in large field offices in city centers. A lot of it is in what we call resident agencies. It might be anywhere as few as a few agents to 100 agents, but they're outnumbered just about everywhere they operate. And that's where when I was working in the small offices, I could only operate if I had the assistance of local law enforcement. And most of the time it was a sheriff's office that was assisting me if I was running down a lead, or I got caught a case in terms of having to investigate a kidnapping or a bank robbery, or even a white collar. The FBI simply can't function without the assistance of local law enforcement, as well as obviously the trust of the American people. So that statement right there from Idaho is really a kind of a the canary in the coal mine where everybody in Washington, D.C. needs to take a breath and say, okay, it's time for us to kind of start working on the American people's perception of the FBI because right now it appears to be broken.
It's not good. It's not good. Talking to you, I'm like, okay, we can give him a chance again. There's some good people in there. Um, let's see. While you're here, I have to ask you about the story from about 2 months ago. If we all still remember this, it was everywhere for 2 days and then nothing, of course, like the news cycle does. Whatever happened with the Pentagon leaker?
Well, from what I understand, that was the guy that loved to be on Discord, and he went in there and he took a whole bunch of documents home, and then he decided to scan them in for whatever reason, and then these gamers were on Discord and they were reading all these documents, and then somebody reported him, and then obviously he's being prosecuted, and he's going to spend some time in prison, and as well he should. But this is also another canary in the coal mine, for lack of a better term, of the overclassification or there's too many people that have access to classified documents. And now you have this kid who's 22, 23. I don't know what his educational background is, but you're giving him access to top secret documents, and then obviously he doesn't have the judgment or the maturity to know, hey, we need to leave this alone. And obviously, he took this for some agenda, most likely because he wanted attention. Well, he got attention. Okay, he's going to be spending, 5 or 10 years in a federal prison. But the way that the whole story kind of dropped, it's kind of irritating because there needs to be a more of a attention to this topic that because this is going to happen more and more often as we all kind of turn over to this mobile world where we're living in our phones.
So is it business as usual for someone at his level to have top secret information like that?
Well, I can't really speak on the military or I think he was an airman on how they operate, but most of the intelligence agencies in terms of the civilian as well as the military, they have groups that are intelligence officers. And some of them have to have access to this data or this information so they can give informed decisions or formed opinions to the leadership. But it seemed to me that this guy was just surfing on the system that had all these documents, and then he decided to start downloading them. So to answer your question, yes, people have to have access so they can actually review this stuff because it comes in raw, and somebody's got to give some context to it. Otherwise, it's just going to be noise to the people who are in charge.
Well, the corporate media it knows how to divert and direct our attention wherever they want. Going back to more recent events, while you're here, I have to ask, what's your take on the white powder at the White House?
That one, it hits home for a different reason that you would think. One of my last cases I investigated was a fentanyl overdose, and basically 4 people died because they ingested cocaine that was laced with fentanyl. They had no intention of using fentanyl. They were out partying, and they got this poison, basically poison cocaine, and they died. So now we have cocaine in the White House. It's been confirmed. Well, what happens next time? And frankly, there will be a next time if this thing doesn't get resolved in a painful manner for whoever brought it in. That there's cocaine that's laced with fentanyl. And now you're putting the president, the first lady, and all the staff at risk if that stuff aerosolizes and gets into the air and somebody ingests it. The other downside, obviously, the other concern is whoever is doing this, they don't test this cocaine for fentanyl. They're getting it to party. And all of a sudden, we're going to hear about a coroner's van going to the White House versus, where in this case it was just a hazmat team. And then the last point is it's absolutely ridiculous that this is happening. The Secret Service has that place locked down. There's no doubt in my mind they can figure out who brought it in and who did it. It's just a matter is do the people at top have the will to bring whoever brought it in to justice or bring them a consequence.
So when you hear something like this report that they've sent away for DNA and print analysis now for this baggie. This is extra, right? Do you think that really needs to be done?
Well, the DNA that's a red herring. You're not gonna. It's very unlikely unless you can see blood on this or some sort of saliva on a baggie. So it's unlikely they're going to get DNA. Now, people talk about touch DNA and all that, and it's just simply the technology is not quite there. Now, as far as the fingerprint, if it's a clear baggie, yes, there's a possibility of a fingerprint, but not a probability. So if they're going to solve this whodunit, in my opinion, there's going to be some sort of choke point where there's cameras, and then they can watch the cameras and see who went into that area and who went out, line them all up, sit them down, interview them, and then one of them will link to it because the Secret Service, they're all former cops. They're all very, very good investigators. Or take a hair sample of everybody and then start testing for drugs.
I mean, yeah, or the person that did it could just come forward and save him all this trouble. Oh my goodness. Colin, before we go, we made it through the rundown. I hope you had a good time. I learned a lot.
Yes, I did. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and your show is great. And if you ever need me back, I'm here for you.
I will, but I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot. What is your message for our viewers? What does society need to hear today?
Get off your phones and talk to people.
I love it, Colin. And before you go, can you tell our viewers about can you tell us about the work that you do at Kronos Investigations?
Yeah, I have my own private investigation agency. I also do forensic accounting as well as fraud investigation and fraud risk assessment, since my background is financial crimes. So that's what I specialize in. I am a certified fraud examiner, as well as somebody who knows a lot about how people steal money. But yes, that's I hung my shingle back in January and working for myself. And frankly, it's wonderful to be your own boss.
That's amazing. Your insight is desperately needed during these times. Where can people find you and follow your business?
It's KronosINV.com. So it's CHRONOSINV.com. And that's where they can get all the information about what I do and who I am.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll have to have you on again if you'd like to come back.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Colin. Remember, when our brothers and sisters wake up from the trance of the little black box and look beyond the mainstream, that will be the day we the people take back our power. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Stay free, and remember, divided we fall, but united we stand.